Good morning, friends. You've joined the Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County. It's 8:30 in the morning and we're getting started. Our recording from our last meeting is up on YouTube and is in your agenda. There are still some congregational sponsors needed for some upcoming eye care events that you can take a look at. Some are ongoing, some are special, like Monument Crisis Center and Food for Thought in West County. And our Meaningful Mondays will be meeting next on November 6th to discuss chapters 14 to 16. Fabulous book by Sister Joan Chittister. Welcome to the Wisdom of the World, and its meaning for you in universal spiritual insights distilled from 5 religious traditions. Father Tom Bonacci is our moderator today, and so we welcome him.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our monthly meeting. Today, I'm sure our hearts are broken and we are filled with concern about what's happening in the Middle East and throughout the world. So as we begin, let's pay attention to the peace that's deep in our heart. And throughout this meeting, take all the peace and love that's in our heart and release it to the people of the world. Let's dedicate ourselves in some way to be people of peace, understanding, and compassion to everyone we meet. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a wonderful thing when we come together. Our meetings are the practice of interfaith love, interfaith peace, and interfaith respect. The great pastor said we ought never to presume the presence of one another. So let's welcome one another in the depth of our mind, heart, and soul. First on our agenda is the approving of the September 14 minutes. If everybody's had a chance to look at those, any amendments or suggestions to those or corrections? May we now move to approve the minutes for September 14th. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Looks like we have unanimous consent. Well, next on our agenda is the land acknowledgement.
This morning we have a special video about the Volvan people, which are one of the sub-tribes of the Ohlone that lived on the north part of Tuishtak. It's not letting me put a cursor on the screen, but this is an anthropologist talking about the people that live there and how long they lived there.
Hello, I'm James Benny. Not a drop of Native American blood in my veins, but I'm interested in the culture and the society and the civilization that existed here for thousands of years before we got here. This short video is meant to communicate my impression of the Volvan tribe as being one of the most important tribes in Central California for thousands of years. They controlled access to the mountain behind me, Mount Diablo, also known as Tuyakshak. Nobody went up there without their permission. The Volvans occupied this plateau about 2,000 feet up on the north side of Mount Diablo. They hosted big-time tribal trading gatherings, ceremonial gatherings, and ritual events that people would come from hundreds of miles to attend. Bev Ortiz, prominent East Bay anthropologist, has written, Mount Diablo is featured in the traditions of several California Indian nations. It was the focal point of the physical and symbolic world for many of the tribal groups surrounding it. Right below us here is what we call the lower Volvan village. There's 200 bedrock mortars down there, multiple mysterious cupual rocks, We think it was inhabited by up to 100 people for thousands of years. Now it's part of the East Bay Regional Park District and the Morgan Territory Regional Preserve. Almost nobody knows it's there, although they walk right through it and right by it frequently. You have to walk into it. You have to sit down into it. Sit down next to one of these 200 bedrock mortars. Try to imagine what it was like down there with 100 people waking up every morning. Moms, dads, kids, grandparents, and then going about their business. It would have been all over the place. We're here now in the western end of the main Volvon village, which runs from here almost a half a mile down this gully, featuring over 750 bedrock mortars that we have uncovered. Right here beside me, this circle of rocks, we believe, was placed here on purpose. We don't know how many hundreds or thousands of years ago. We think this was a ceremonial site or a celebration site here. And this circle of rocks was part of it. It has several different kinds of bedrock mortars. I'll show you one in a minute. And out here, we have what we think was the ceremonial site, where we're right in between two watersheds here, Marsh Creek and Mallory Creek. Mount Diablo visible in the distance. The 8,000-year-old Los Vaqueros man was uncovered 3 miles down the creek here. That man, 8,000 years ago, probably came to this site. Almost assuredly did. The other thing that we like to point out is that a study in Monterey County found that a skeleton in a cave that they uncovered was 5,000 years old. They were able to extract DNA from it, and they went around Monterey looking for older Native American Indians, and they found a woman who was directly related to this 5,000-year-old skeleton. And what this tells us is that these were stable populations of people. We think that the people here could have been here for 5,000 years or longer. The same families, the same tribal setup, the same people in charge of the mountain, Mount Diablo. Why is it important? Why is it important that they were able to live on this land for so long? What was their society like? What was their culture? What was their structures, their religious structures, their social and religious structures? How did they live? And what were the things that they had going on that allowed them to be here in California for so long? Today there's an increasing awareness that there might be something of value to be gained from indigenous cultures. And we have here a site that is a prototype of an indigenous cultural settlement here in California. People are paying more attention to it now. Despite evidence we have discovered of over 80 sites and over 2,000 bedrock mortars here in Volvon territory, awareness of this tribe and its existence appears to be almost non-existent. We haven't found anybody who's even interested. Indigenous cultures threatened with extinction in many parts of the world, here in the San Francisco Bay Area, are revitalizing their cultures and their languages, their ceremonies, and the different things that they do to make themselves feel whole here on the land. Despite evidence we have discovered of over 80 sites and 2,000 bedrock mortars here in Volvon territory alone on this part of Mount Diablo, there appears to be no interest and no appreciation of the fact that this site is here at all. We're working to change that. I'm going to read a little quote now from Linda Yamane, the major league artist, basket weaver, and spokesperson for the local Bay Area Native American people. She writes, "The Ohlone Indian world of the past was rich in supernatural meaning and ritual, with shamans and healers, shapeshifters, and others who specialized in the mystical matters of their everyday world. The Volvon tribe presided over this world. We're in the main Volvon village right now that controlled access to Mount Diablo, the sacred mountain." Okay.
We will learn more about them with the rest of this video at our next meeting. Are there a couple people willing to read our covenant?
I can start.
Please do. Thank you.
In solidarity with one another, we each affirm. Our gatherings are interfaith gatherings. We come together from diverse communities to be inspired and transformed by the rich diversity of the faith traditions. We commit ourselves to compassionate and active listening as we engage in respectful dialogue. We welcome those who might differ from us, seeking their wisdom and insights. Each of us shares in the privilege of growing in interfaith love and understanding. Our working together for a common cause brings us together in peace.
We are responsible for the work and outreach of the Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County. The governing board provides the necessary oversight and will be attentive to the elected council's ideas, wisdom, and suggestions. We will strive to support and participate in the various outreach programs sponsored and supported by the Interfaith Council. We hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards as we grow together in trust and respect for one another. Our time together is the practice of interfaith understanding, cooperation, and respect. We hope our time together will bless one another, our community, and the world.
Thank you so much. I believe now we have an opening faith reflection.
I don't see Kate with us yet, so we
Okay.
may have to come back to that. And I don't see our community reports either.
Well,
But
then,
without them, let me point out one thing here.
okay, please.
Inside of our agenda, we don't have a whole lot of reports this morning because we had so many with our annual report. So we encourage you to download that annual report, which includes a lot of the more recent reports from folks. And we did put out a statement yesterday, the recent events in the Middle East. And why don't I read this while we're waiting for other folks to join us? And maybe someone would be willing to talk about how they're feeling if they have loved ones over there, if they're willing to do that. Our hearts break with sorrow and rage as we witness the brutality of the terrorist attacks against the citizens of Israel. We offer our condolences and prayers for the family and friends of those who have lost loved ones. The idea of kidnapping children and innocent people is beyond comprehension. The threat of their execution should alarm and enrage the world. May the violence born of hatred be defeated so we may have the opportunity to meet one another as human beings, seeking justice and dignity for all. We must do everything in our power to support governments dedicated to ensuring and honoring every person's dignity and human rights. The events unfolding in Israel and Gaza warn us. There's Kate, good. The events unfolding in Israel and Gaza warn us to oppose extremist ideology anywhere that would compromise the rights of anyone to live in peace. We call for an immediate cessation of violence among all parties as we encourage the fulfillment of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, Article 1, which reads, "All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of belonging and mutual care. We hope and pray the hostages will be released, families will be reunited, the wounded will be cared for, and the dead will be respectfully and lovingly honored. We call for essential services to be provided to all displaced and suffering people. We hope when this conflict resolves, the land will be restored as a land of hope and opportunity for all. May peace prevail over all the earth. That was approved by our governing board. Kate, welcome. Did you have a faith reflection for us this morning?
Was I supposed
No? I thought we talked about it last month, but I could be wrong. I've been a little too busy lately. Why don't we just see what other faith reflections are out there before we start our dialogue for the day? Is there anyone who feels like they need to say something, especially given the concern we all have for the violence going on the other side of the world?
Diane?
I did attend a Zoom meeting by Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb, and there were over 40 people who shared how they are affected by these events and how saddened they are and depressed. I know it's must be so hard because there are people in the Middle East that were working towards peace with Palestinians and Jews, and this undermines everything that they have been trying to achieve. And it breaks my heart when it's so hard to build up love and faith, and how hate can tear it down so quickly. And it's just we have a lot of work to do, and it's not going to be easy. And it's important that we support humanity projects that are going to help rebuild, and it's important that we let everyone know that this is not something we can just, here in America, we can't just let it. We have to do something somehow, in some way. That's all I say now.
Virginia?
Yes, I just wanted to say I was reading about Vivian Silver, who lived in the kibbutz on the border of Gaza and Israel. I think it was the Be'eri kibbutz. And she's 74, and she's been working for years to try to get some needy Palestinian women into Israel for healthcare and help working with children, getting the medical care over the border. And they don't know where she is. As far as I've heard, she's still missing, or maybe she's been kidnapped. I don't know. But I pray for her and all the seniors that are, and the children and the women that are being compromised in this tragedy on both sides. I also have a prayer for America, because I think we really have to be extra cautious right now and think of our security, and pray for the wisdom of our leaders all over the world, that they make the right choices, and that we do find some way of peace in the Middle East for the Palestinians and the Israelites as well. It's the only way is to have, mutual respect for all of their holy sites and their wonderful blessings to all of us. O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee through thy bounty and bestowal. Amtoba. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a thought or what they would like to share?
I think Leonard is trying to
Yeah,
unmute.
I just unmuted. We just came back from Europe and we have family there. My wife has family there. And this has all started with Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the steps it's taking towards World War III. You have, in spite of being prosperous and free and enjoying the benefits of a liberal society, you have Hungary and Slovakia moving towards Putin. And I think all of that has opened the door for all of this to come about. And I am horrified and worried that this is going to be a final step in that step to World War III, and that scares me no end. It's what I remember happening in the 30s, and I see it happening again. And all this has to be stopped. It has to be stopped, not by good wishes. It has to. We have to use strength and purpose and go in there and stop all this. Otherwise, it's going to be too late.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Anyone else like to share?
I'd like to just share something. As a good friend of mine pointed out, this is a super complicated situation in the Middle East. I mean, there is lots of blame to go around. And if it was easy to fix, it would have been fixed long ago. So it is a challenging situation. I'm reminded that the Israelis and the Palestinians all descend from Abraham. And in some ways, you could kind of view this as a severe family split. And it seems the only way to ever mend a family split like this is through ongoing gestures of love and forgiveness. And it's not that hasn't been done by some. It feels to me like we just need more and more of us who have underlying in our hearts, a deep desire for peace. And you can blame on both sides that there's people who thwart that hope, that long-term hope for peace. And what to do with it, again, it's just complicated. There's lots of ways to go about it, but ultimately it takes people who really, really want peace. And I think we, through our words and actions, can hopefully help to generate more peace in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Myself, I found it heartwarming and encouraging that President Zelensky of Ukraine asked if he could visit Israel. And I thought, wow, It's not like he has nothing to do, and it's not like there's nothing going on. But here you see a person whose country is in danger of being defeated by at least what was a superpower, but anyway, an overwhelming force. And it's interesting how he comes to the emotional aid and the practical aid of another suffering people. And that just gave me some hope and some light in the midst of the darkness and the conflict. I think it's really important for us to understand that what's happening in the Middle East is what's happening in the world. And one of the things that's behind this, if you'll forgive me, is religious extremism, where it's my way or the highway. My faith tradition is the faith tradition. Everybody in the world should be thinking and praying like this. And therefore, it seemed to me one of the most important works that we do as an interfaith council, not only in our formal meetings, but in our practical life, is to make sure that our religious expression and our religious convictions are not based on dehumanizing other people, but really based on principles of compassion and respect. It's an ongoing work. We always have to be searching our institutions, our mind, and our hearts to make sure that we're confronting our implicit biases, our prejudice, our fears, and our stereotypes. Because what's at issue here is real people. Imagine we can actually get to a point where we can hurt, kill, and torture children for our beliefs and ideology. It's heartbreaking. We have to claim our own humanity and self-respect so we can claim the humanity and the dignity of others.
Well, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Am I the only Jewish? I mean, I'm the only Jewish congregation here today. You know,
No, I'm here.
no.
No.
Because
And Andrew's new from Temple Isaiah.
Oh, okay. I got you. I'm a mess, but for a number of reasons, and I need to stay off the news. And I wasn't going to come today because it's been a bad week for us. I don't have family in Israel. I have friends who have children there. I have friends who have children that are being called up to the military this week. And it's a mess. We've been to Israel. I don't have anything to add other than there's heightened security around the world, and there's a lot of heightened security in the United States and in California. So our temple is taking precautions. I'm sure most of the temples are, and Jewish community centers and preschools in the area, but it's bad, and it's bad all over. But it's, for Jews in this country and around the world, I think it's hit us hard. So I have kids. They're old, but they're mad, they're angry, they're upset. And there needs to be a solution. So, we need, it's going to take a long, long time. It feels like it's been going on forever, but there needs to be something more than what has been done in the past. So that's all.
Thank you for being here. Really, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence.
The messages I'm getting from folks in the Muslim community are very similar, Naomi. And there's some fear there that there might be violence against them as well. Let's hold all of our communities together.
I'm sorry, Reverend, Father Tom, I thought what you said was beautiful, but I wanted, can you repeat it? that we have to claim our own humanity before.
So that we can claim the dignity and respect of other people. To me, the work is always inward and outward, and really paying attention to our own history, our own interfaith experience. You know, I've been to Israel 7 or 8 times, and it's part of my life. I grew up in a Jewish community. While we were Roman Catholic, I don't think I knew that till I was about in the 7th or 8th grade, as I've shared before. At a synagogue that was part of my childhood was Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, PA. The rabbi there used to walk me to school. So the feelings about this cut many, many different ways. The affinity that I feel in the Jewish root, I mean, that was an interfaith experience, but it was more than that. It was the spirituality that I grew up with. And it still runs in my blood, and I hope it always does. So I think the more that we can personalize the events that happen within the world, we ourselves can become people that practice this centering compassion and respect. I think it's something my mother said, in the madness of the world, at some point somebody has to stop and move in the direction of what is good, right, true, and beautiful. Wow. I'm sure, like many of you right now, what I feel is just a sense of being overwhelmed. Any other thoughts or reflections that you would like to share? Please feel free to do so. Carolyn?
I would like to suggest something. I don't know how possible it would be, but I feel such a sense of compassion and warmth and understanding with this group. I'm grateful for you, each of you. Is there any way that we could connect with other interfaith councils around the country and express our solidarity with the richness that we have here that might perhaps influence others to feel that, yes, we can be in solidarity with one another, even with our divergent ideas and faiths? We can have Zoom meetings. I'm not sure what there could be done, but it's just such a treasure to be here today with all of you that I don't see why we couldn't share this and join with the other interfaith councils around the country and express our solidarity in this way too.
I love that idea.
If only there was an organization that we all belong to. Unfortunately, it met 2 months ago in the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago. The other convening organization is United Religions Initiative, and we've attended some of their conferences, but they're really, we don't all belong to the same association. There's not a pope of interfaith councils. Unless we're talking about Father Tom.
But are there other interfaith councils that we could connect with some way?
Well, we are connected through the Bay Area Interfaith Leadership Council. And those are the 5 organizations in Marin, Contra, Costa, Alameda, South Bay, and San Francisco. And we've done some work together. We could ask them if they would host a gathering, and usually the convener for that group is the Interfaith Center at the Presidio. That chapel was given to the board there for their caretaking, and they are the convener of our groups. here in the Bay Area, and we could put out a request to see if they could do a gathering so folks could share their support for one another.
There's nothing beyond the Bay Area then that's like this Interfaith Council?
Well, each of them tend to be independent 501c3s like us, that are organized in their own areas and have independent leaders. And because we're independent, we could put a call out to see if anyone would want to join. And there's another group called the North American Interfaith Network, NAIN, and they do things usually in August around World Interfaith. Oh, there's a specific holiday for it, and that I'm blanking on. And they did some meetings in August. But the Parliament of the World's Religions is the only global group that has a conference every 3 years. The United Religions Initiative, of which we are a cooperation circle, and the Bay Area Interfaith Leadership Council is also a cooperation circle of URI. We might be able, I think they have over 1,000 different interfaith groups around the world. They might be willing to host something, but oftentimes they do it at times that aren't always the easiest for, sometimes they put it at times that are easy for us, but then not easy for other folks around the world too. So when they have certain meetings, sometimes they're 7 a.m. in the Pacific time, so that they're not too late in the East Coast, and can be done and include people from other time zones.
Well, have one that would be continuous from one time zone to the next. As the Earth circles around, we have one continuous one. I mean, that's just a creative idea. But I'd love to be able to connect in a larger circle, because yes, I'm afraid of anti-Semitism. I'm afraid of all the antis that we face today. And if we stand so solidly together, then at least we'd be expressing our voice and not be part of the silence.
I had a thought that recently, I think it was within the last 2 or 3 days, Congressman Eric Swalwell I think he's from Dublin. I don't know if he convened a meeting or some kind of an outreach to interfaith leaders. I think more in Alameda than Contra Costa, but he's a pretty high profile guy, and maybe he could get behind publicizing something like that. Something like what you're talking about, Carolyn.
Rabbi Jacqueline Mates-Muchin emailed me last night. She's at Temple Sinai in Oakland on Summit Street. She emailed Mana from Racist Community, and she said, "I hope you're all well. My community and I are having a difficult time. The details of the atrocities committed by Hamas are inconceivable. Women raped, murdered, and paraded naked through the streets, babies decapitated in their cribs, entire families kidnapped. It is so horrible. And of course, the details also bring up for us other times in our history where Jews were so brutally murdered. We appreciate that so many countries have decried Hamas's actions, including ours, and yet we are feeling alone. Of course, there's a lot to unpack and discuss, but the overall situation with Israel and Palestine, and there must come a time when peace is a possibility. But right now, our East Bay Jewish community is in need of friends and support. We understand that there's been a call put out to rise up in support of Hamas, and we're concerned that that could mean individuals seeking to do harm to Jewish communities. We are feeling vulnerable. In that spirit, I want to invite you to join us for Shabbat services this Friday night. We gather from 6:30 to 7:30 in our sanctuary at the corner of 28th and Webster Street, followed by snacks in our social hall. We'd be honored if you and members of your religious communities would join with us in prayer for wisdom, strength, and peace. Please let me know if you're able to join us. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for all of us here on earth in friendship. Rabbi Jackie Mates-Muchin. I replied, "I wish I could be there with you, but I have plans to drive to Portland Friday afternoon to be with my son and then drive back along the coast. Can I send another person from our council?" Of perhaps Reza Sharif Zadeh from the council, as well as Mana from the same MTO Shamlik Sudi School of Islamic Sufism can attend. I can ask others if that would be helpful. Shalom and Hashem be with you and yours. May we remember our siblinghood. She said we'd just like support of friends and are grateful to anyone who is able to join us. So maybe that's what the time and the moment requires, is that we be with each other.
What congregation is that?
That's Temple Sinai, but you've got 3 Jewish communities represented here: Naomi at Bethlehem, Leonard Doran at B'nai Tikva, Andrew at Temple Isaiah, B'nai Shalom in Concord, where Celia Mixel is a member. There's B'nai Torah in Brentwood and Beth Hallel in Richmond. So maybe just go to the one that's closest to you, or you could even go to a mosque on Friday afternoon for Juma prayers around 1 o'clock and still get to a Shabbat service by 6:30 or 7. Most Juma prayers are Fridays at 1 o'clock. But we're missing our siblings from the San Ramon Valley Islamic Center and the community of Zahra, and other Muslim communities aren't here this morning as well. So they probably need solidarity too.
And I think an ongoing effort as well. Our immediate response today and the next few days is important. But as time goes on, our presence to one another and support to one another must increase. We can't allow ourselves to think this is somehow passing news. This is a life-changing event in the world and in our lives.
I will reach out to Temple Beth Hallel and see if I can attend, Reverend.
Thank you. Rabbi Dean has been a great friend of ours, hasn't he?
Yes, and I work with him Food for Thought every year anyways. I will reach out and see if we can also get some other Sikhs from El Sobrante to attend that.
Yeah.
I'll get our social justice group to go to perhaps the mosque at Friday noon and a Shabbat on Friday evening.
Reverend Will, I think this is a great idea. Unfortunately, I'm out of town, but I'll reach out to folks in my faith community as well and see if we can get people to attend Temple Isaiah at least, and also Bethlehem.
You can also do it wherever you are. When I was in Salt Lake for my mother's funeral when the Tree of Life shooting occurred, I went to Congregation Kolami in Salt Lake.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm on an airplane right when in the middle of that.
I'll get some information B'nai Tikva is doing, and I'll send it to you, Will, and you can forward it to everybody.
Okay, or you can, if you reply all to the one that I sent the agenda on, that goes to everyone that's on this listserv.
Oh, okay, I can do that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Why
it.
don't we see how we could do this on a regular basis, because this is going to be ongoing. And we really don't want this anti-poison to continue. We have to do it somehow.
It might be, Reverend Will, it might be good if you wouldn't mind. Could you accumulate or summarize all of the Jewish communities and the Islamic communities, and then we can kind of find who's local to us? I don't know if somebody could do that. And maybe I shouldn't put it on you, Reverend Will. Maybe we can we can just put together a list and push it out. I think it would be nice.
And is there somehow some person in these congregations that we can contact to let them know that we're coming?
If you look at the membership list on our website, let me pull it up real quick for you and show you how it works.
While Reverend Will is working on that, Father Tom, could I just add one PS to my earlier comment?
Of course.
And that is, I think, we're always so worried about offending someone else that sometimes we have a difficulty, calling evil where evil exists. I thought in the letter where you laid out, what we view as just morally unacceptable, attacking innocent civilians, the torture and the cruelty. We absolutely have to condemn that. But just because we condemn the action doesn't mean that we're condemning a whole swath of people necessarily. I mean, we love the Palestinians. We condemn the actions of this brutality, and we condemn anyone, no matter what their nationality or religion, who's going to be brutally attacking others. That said, I think countries have a right to defend themselves, and peoples have a right to defend themselves. And then it's that gray area, and what is defense versus what is brutality, that just gets complicated. So we're always so careful to not want to, take sides, so to speak. But in some cases, I think we have to take sides when something is just morally unacceptable. So I commend you for that. And it's so delicate, but we need to be able to be that sort of cry out against evil, but extend love and a peace offering. And it's a challenging road to walk, or what do you call it? Well, it's just difficult. You can fall off on either side. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Let me show folks a little bit about our website. If you go to Interfaith CCC for carrying ContraCostaCounty.org, that's our website, and we've got a lot of different programs about us, and even an events calendar that you can submit your events. But the membership link is over here, and then the latest news we put in as posts here. So our statement on the recent events in the Middle East is here. The annual report link is here. Even the information about our annual meeting is still here. And then there's sometimes it populates the Facebook and Twitter things, so you can see things that we're posting there. But there's just other links and coming up. But when you go to the membership one, it looks like this, and you can join as an individual or as a congregational. There's a little form there. You can even sign up for our e-blast here. So if you didn't get an email with the statement we put out last night, you can just sign up for our e-blast right here. But the second link on the left here is a congregational members list. And we have regional groups like East County United, that is usually hosted by the Interfaith Peace Project. So June Kirk and her name that we honored Sunday night at the annual meeting is here. The Rossmore Interfaith Council, I need to update that to Channing. Interfaith San Ramon Valley, I serve Reverend Steve Harms. There is a Pleasant Hill Clergy Network, and it looks like I need to update that too. Reverend Fred has moved on to New York. And then there's a Women of Spirit in La Marinda. There's links to all of the Bay Area Interfaith Councils of Alameda, Eden area, San Francisco, Marin, Interfaith Center of the Presidio, URI. Interfaith Observer hosts interfaith articles, Peninsula Clergy Network, South Bay Interfaith Space, Tri-City Interfaith Council is one of the regional ones inside Alameda. You can buy the interfaith calendars at Interfaith Marketplace. There's an All Faiths Coalition in Alameda, and Silicon Valley Interreligious Council is in the South Bay. And then it basically just goes by congregations by city. So we have one congregation in Alameda. Here are the Antioch congregations or members. And if you take a look, there's an Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Bay Point. There's a Sikh temple there in Bay Point. There's a smaller one. The Chaplaincy Institute and the MTO Shah Maksudi School of Islamic Sufism in Berkeley. Brentwood includes Brentwood United Methodist and Congregation B'nai Torah. And they meet with Brentwood Unity in the same space. But there's a website that you can go to for that. Byron, it's mostly Christians there. Clayton are 3 Christian congregations. Concord has There are some majids in Concord, but they're not members. I think they're mostly run by families together. In Danville, there's Bethlehem Congregation, and the information here and the link to their website is right here. San Damiano, St. Timothy's, Dublin, El Cerrito, El Sobrante, Lafayette. There's Buddha Gate Monastery. Lafayette has Temple Isaiah right here, and there's a link to their congregation with Rabbi Jill and all the other rabbis listed there. None in Moraga. Orinda, I don't think has any. There's Pinole in West County. There's Christ the Lord that Christine goes to. There's my congregation in Pittsburgh. This is probably one of the largest congregations in our whole county, Shri Guru Ravidas Sikh Temple. They have 4,000 or 5,000 families there. Pleasant Hill, Pleasanton, Richmond. There's a Moorish Science Temple in Richmond. There's Temple Beth Hillel. There's the address and the website, and even an email for Rabbi Dean. And then the others are in Walnut Creek. So Rabbi B'nai Shalom and Rabbi Daniel Stein's information is there. Congregation B'nai Tikva, Reformed congregation that Leonard goes to is there. The Walnut Creek Islamic Center, I think, is down here. Dr. Amara Raim and Tariq Al-Dardiri is the space manager. So if I were to call them, I would ask for Tariq at that number. But those are our membership congregations. And so if you ever want to contact folks of different traditions, that's the easiest way to do it. If you are looking for a reference for someone to come speak in your congregation from a specific tradition, you can always call me and I can make some suggestions.
And well, if I may, there's another resource for the United States in case you find yourself in other places in the United States and would like to know where your nearest religious interfaith sensitive place might be. If you go to Harvard University, you can go directly to the Pluralism Project. The Pluralism Project had the directory by the religious traditions of the sites across the United States. It tells you that we have the potential to be interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent, so that when we make our respect, we don't stand alone.
Is this Harvard University, Father Tom?
The Pluralism Project. Pluralism Project. It's by Donna Eck out of Harvard University.
Thank you.
Reverend, when we go to the Shabbats at the Jewish temples, should we all have the approved I4C letter to maybe kind of have the same message in case we are asked to speak?
You can bring a copy of it if you'd like. I don't know that they'll ask you to speak as much as just your presence meaning the difference for them.
Okay, I mean, I'm just saying that if people do ask, then we want to probably keep a, message the same and represent our interfaith views, right? Or our I4Cs.
Well, let them know of the tenor of this conversation. Let them know of our care for them as American siblings. Your own heart for and hope and dreams for peace. That can mean more than a statement often.
Absolutely. It would be nice, one day for us to just chronicle such violences and how long. And I one of the things that I've been thinking is how long has this scenario played out over and over and over again? Violence against women and children, and we often just speak about it and let it be, but this needs to be at the center of our daily thought and become sort of a passion, to where this has happened over and over and over, to a point where we need to say, now this needs to stop. I mean, that's how I kind of feel. Like, I just think back thousands of years, this has happened, and again happens to yesterday. I mean, it's happening today. Like, why haven't we learned that this is not right? Who in their right mind, sorry to say it this way, would take a young girl and parade them nude in, for what reason? What's the benefit? What's the message? That totally drives me crazy. But anyways, that's why I was silent and not speaking, because it's kind of sad the way it has to happen. It had happened, and it has happened so many times. Why aren't we learning from it?
Virginia?
Yes, Erica, I feel your heart. And I'm sad myself today. I almost didn't want to come on. But I would urge everyone to remember that there's a lot of fake news out there that is going on in X and on TikTok and online. You really have to be very careful what you believe. Because, for instance, one of the paragliders, that was actually taken from an Egyptian exercise that they were doing there in Egypt. And there are pictures from Ukraine and supposedly from the Middle Eastern situation. So you have to take all this with a grain of salt. Plus, there's a lot of artificial intelligence out there that's putting people there with faces that you think you know who they are, but they may not be them. So let's just tone it down and take one day at a time, work for a greater peace. And we have the Baha'i Center, which is open to all faiths all the time. We have services on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And I'll be there this Saturday in the morning at 10. And anybody, any faith that would like to come in, you're very welcome. We can hold like 200 people. And just come in and share love in person. We'd love to have you there. It's on Clayton Road on Rosal Lane on the corner. And I just sent Will and Dave and some other people a video from Ali Yousefi, which includes a Zoom song about unity and the oneness of humanity with 25 different countries and 88 participants singing together in unity. I think it's a very healing song. Anyone that would like to listen to it, it's very full of unity and healing. And that's what we need. We need to tone ourselves down, take one day at a time, and just spread love. And this takes a personal outward-looking attitude first before we can help our community, and hence the world and our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, I had a thought. When I started the Interfaith Peace Project, one of its primary goals and what we identified as an interfaith concern was the dignity and the respect of women. As a matter of fact, the first configuration of my work was called the Women's Interfaith Center at Carleton University. In 1985, I believe it is, John Paul II issued one of 105 letters to the people of the world apologizing for the malfeasance and misbehavior of the church. And one of those letters was the apology to women. It's been my conviction for a long time that embedded even in our sacred text, and sometimes embedded even in our doctrine, we have attitudes toward one another, toward people of different faith, and especially toward women, that ends up demeaning people, questioning their full humanity. And I think at a time like this, it's very, very important for us to carry on that introspection. Is there anything in my tradition? Is there anything in my teaching? Is there anything in my belief? Is there anything in my heart that endangers and demeans other people? Some have called it disarming the heart. Some have called it raising the consciousness. I remember when I was a little boy in school and being taught in religious education class about how other people were less than because they believed other than what I did. And the repercussions of that we see over and over again in the world. Can anybody else identify with that or share with that? Do you have any thoughts that you would like to continue this conversation in this vein? Roger?
Yes, thank you, Father Tom. I share your insights and informations today is very heartwarming and peaceful within these extremely difficult times that everyone is experiencing. And also emphasizing, like I was looking in a dialogue as far as what is the interfaith and creation of the interfaith and the importance of the interfaith that I am experiencing as we all gathering together and practically by being here, representing that we all are one. There is no differences. At the bottom of it, everyone is one. All the communities are one. Sufism's core teachings are teaching that the reality of all of us is one, which is core, like what you mentioned, in love and respect. Now, whatever reflections are, they are just a matter of the time as we have been progressed throughout the history. So it is important that we are here and we gather here and we share our feelings that we are one, and we pray and we strive to preach that and to outreach that as a seed, let's say, is planted. And then it just grow and it's grow and it's grow and it becomes such a humongous tree. So the interfaith is moving in that direction to influence all communities and to grow and expand. And it's real. It will affect and it will materialize in a direction that everyone will respect, all the faiths will respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I ran across a line from a song in the 60s, and it said, "How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died?"
Wow, I remember that. Thank you. Any other reflections or thoughts? May I ask you another question then? When you look into your heart or your own faith tradition from which you come, or perhaps you've been inspired by another faith tradition, is there a prayer or a sacred text, a brief insight that you could share at this moment? For the sake of encouraging one another, for blessing the world and raising our consciousness? Is there a text, a verse, as Greg just did with a song, that you can share with one another at this moment? And I can begin. There is a prayer in the Christian tradition, the Catholic tradition, that reads like this. In the midst of conflict and division, we know it is you, O God, who turn our minds to thoughts of peace. Your spirit changes our hearts, and enemies begin to speak one to another. Your spirit is at work when understanding puts an end to strife, when hatred is quenched by mercy, and vengeance gives way to forgiveness. And of course, I pray that in no ways implying that what has happened is acceptable. Breaks my heart. Please feel free to share. Just take yourself off mute and speak from your heart.
Well, I'll share. In Jewish religious practice, there at the end of every piece of a service, so a number of times during a traditional service, the same prayer is said, and simply it's may the one who makes peace bring peace to all of us on this earth, and to Israel. And for me, that's a really important reminder to just keep repeating that, and then to think about how we can be a vessel of peace in the world.
So Andrew, I've attended just a couple Jewish services, and that song, as you're saying that song is reverberating in my head. I was hoping you would sing it as a welcome to the Interfaith Council. No, I'm teasing, but it's beautiful.
I can share one line of a prayer that we say daily, Sufism oriented. Let there be peace and love among all beings of the universe.
Do you mind repeating that?
The whole prayer is, may the light of your silence break in every heart. Let there be peace and love among all beings of the universe.
From the Baha'i faith, we say the earth is one country and mankind its citizens. There should be no borders. Borders are all created by mankind, I should say.
I can share one from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Early in our history, in the early 1800s, our faith was persecuted quite a bit. I'm not saying the persecution was as great as some other faiths, but we've sensed a bit of what it's like to be kind of the other, the non, religion non grata. And it was a time, this is in our scriptures, in our kind of modern day sort of organizational scriptures, which we call Doctrine and Covenants. And there was a time when the church was under persecution, that our founding leader, Joseph Smith, received a revelation. And this is one of this is section 98 of the Doctrine and Covenants. And this is what the Lord said to Joseph Smith. Therefore, renounce war and proclaim peace, and seek diligently to turn the hearts of the children to their fathers and the hearts of the fathers to their children. It's kind of referring to the scripture in Malachi about where Malachi encouraged us to turn our hearts to each other. And I just think this is so powerful that we proclaim, it's not a passive thing, it's a very active thing. We proclaim peace and we renounce war, and we seek to turn the hearts of children to fathers and fathers to children. I think it's a beautiful, powerful injunction.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm kind of at the odd with what my religion says. Sometimes when you see the type of hate that has gone on, or the type of brutal, warfare or whatever. But in page 1381 in the Guru Granth Sahib, it says, answer evil with goodness and kindness. Do not fill your mind with anger. This only brings suffering and disease to the body and the mind, not now, but would leave other suffering of mind and disease to the body, and will bring more hate and more war and hatred. If you follow your heart and instead use a weapon, and you answer evil just with that beautiful heart full of love, you shall obtain peace for sure. So sometimes when you read that, and it's in the plain scripture, and you see the hatred and it never ends, you start wondering, it's all good in word, but yes, will this stop? I mean, if today, Israel were to answer Hamas with reaching out and with love and with open arms, will this really solve the problem? I mean, this is what the scripture says in page 1381. And when you read it, you ask yourself, but how? It has not worked for thousands of years. How will it work now? But that's what the scripture says, and kind of makes you start wondering about your own religion or scripture or things that sounds good and right.
Thank you for that. That's when we need each other. That's when we stand together. That's when we walk together. Virginia?
Erica, God has created all of us noble and perfect. It's only us human beings that create war. Everything coming from God and created by God is good. Evil is just the absence of good. So people could just remember that and teach our children to love everyone without the isms, then we'd all be a better world and have a greater peace. But this won't happen until people unite, religions unite, nations unite. It won't happen. So, but we have to look forward to that, because God tells us that there is a future for us. There is a greater peace, but we have to work toward it. We have to look at all of the attributes that God has, and that we, being made in the image of God, we have those attributes too. And all of our prophets and manifestations are teaching this. If we listen to the manifestations, because that's the only way we can get close to God, listen to the teachers that have taught us through the centuries how to use those virtues that God gave everyone, all our capabilities to make a better world. And we can only do that together. Thank you.
I'd like to read something from this Sunday's reading from the prophet Isaiah. On this mountain, he will destroy the veil that veils all peoples. The web that is woven over all nations, he will destroy, death forever. The Lord God will wipe away the tears from every face. The reproach of his people he will remove from the whole earth, for the Lord has spoken. On that day it will be said, behold our God, to whom we look to save us. This is the Lord for whom we looked. Let us rejoice and be glad that he has saved us. For the hand of the Lord will rest on this mountain. We're imperfect. It's an imperfect world. Each of us must travel the same road and be the best that we can. And we have prophets of many religions to show us and teach us.
Thank you so much.
This is from Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who's the new president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, who's most recently from the Bay Area. I think she now lives in Boston as president of the UUA. She released this 2 days ago. I pray for the people of Israel and Palestine. We are one global family living tenuously on the same human impacted earth. Let us center ourselves in justice as we call for peace.
Thank you.
So in April of this year, our prophet, Russell M. Nelson, gave a talk in our general conference about peacemakers needed. And at the time, he obviously wasn't thinking about this, but the discussion was definitely one that reverberates now. And he just implored on everyone that each of us have a commitment to be a peacemaker. And he made the promise that the best is yet to come for those who spread their lives building up others. And I think, Father Tom, that's exactly what you've been talking about today, is it is our job to not spread hatred, but to build each other up and to be united at this time.
Thank you so much.
I'm a part of Combatants for Peace and their religious leader advisory board, and we've hosted them as the Interfaith Council to hear the stories of folks that have lost loved ones on both sides of this conflict for the decades that it's been going on. And their statement came a few days ago and said, for the past 3 days, Israel has faced an unprecedented surprise attack by Hamas forces who infiltrated from Gaza into the surrounding communities and launched a brutal and shocking campaign of murdering and kidnapping civilians and soldiers. In response, Israel has launched offensive airstrikes on Gaza, killing hundreds, the vast majority of whom are civilians. All this violence amounts to war crimes, and we strongly condemn all breaches of international and humanitarian law from any and all sides. Our hearts are with all the victims and their families. The situation is still unclear and unfolding, but the difficult questions are already beginning to be asked, and rightly so. What is painfully clear is that this extreme right-wing settler government is showing their inability to keep anyone safe. A government that since its formation has only focused on itself and their agenda to occupy and annex the West Bank, appease those who stand in their way, and entrench the separation of Israelis and Palestinians. We as a community cannot detach ourselves from the extremism and incitement that this government has been promoting since it formed, and the result is the biggest security failure that the state of Israel has ever known. For the sake of every Israeli and Palestinian life, it must go. For us in our movement, this is a crucial moment where we must all dig deep to find our resolve to move ahead together. This is not a time for revenge or collective punishment of the innocent. The only solution is ending the occupation. We call for nonviolence and a renewed sense of humanity and better days ahead for all of our children. Still believing in another way, still believing in nonviolence.
Who submitted that
That was the
statement?
American Friends of the Combatants for Peace.
Andrew?
Yeah, I'm actually wearing Combatants for Peace shirt underneath here. I think as we go forward, as we hear, interact with one another and listen to one another, and sort of reach out across our differences, I guess this is a pitch, but I would encourage us to look for organizations, both in the United States and elsewhere, that do the same kind of work, and look, such as Combatants for Peace and other organizations that are striving to promote dialogue and collaboration and cooperation in the name of peace, and to do what we can to support them going forward, because I also believe that is the alternative, or an alternative, to violence.
We have to learn to mourn with each other.
Diane?
This,
I was just going to say that it was recommended to me, Jewish Voices for Peace is an organization, Jewish Voices for Peace.
Well, I think I cut you off. I'm sorry about that.
I was just going to say that the Combatants for Peace hold a Memorial Day, a joint Memorial Day in Israel, and we helped co-sponsor it one year. And it's the families of every side. There's not just two sides to these conflicts. There's always 9 to 12 sides, right? But when they hold these joint memorials and the family members sharing their mourning together, I think that's even more powerful.
Yes. Well, everyone, if I may, we had a meeting very, very different than what we had planned. And so that will mean that we will reconsider our future agendas. So our gratitude and love to all of you for allowing this to happen. This is the practice of interfaith love and understanding, where we can hold each other in the brokenness of the moment. I am deeply moved and deeply touched to be with you today. Here we are, a little group of people who have allowed the world events in general, and the events in Israel in particular, to break our hearts. And in that broken heart, we continue to find each other. I have no idea what the future holds. I stand with you today in somewhere between fear and bafflement. But what I do know is that being with you in this moment is a blessing. And may what we hold here as a blessing be the work that we continue to do as we reach out into the world. Thank you for being who you are. And in our future meeting, we will probe that even more deeply, when each of us will have a chance to speak from the depth of our heart as to what our spirituality, our vision, and philosophy happens to be. I also want to express gratitude to Will, to the council, and to all of you for all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes in order to make the covenant of the Interfaith Council a reality in the world. Well, before we conclude, are there any announcements that we need to know before we do our final benediction?
I did send a list of all of the congregations, Jewish and Muslim, to each of you with some contact information. And I think I added the phone numbers where they were missing. So I think everyone should have that. But we want to, you are the Interfaith Council. You are the elected council and representatives. The new members, we're going to give you a name tag. So when you go visit congregations, you can wear your name tag and represent the Interfaith Council. And we'll mail that to you as soon as we get it made for you. If anyone needs a new one, let me know, since I'm going to be ordering those new ones soon. And especially as you're going and visiting folks, let them know that you're there representing the Interfaith Council. Let them know what faith tradition and congregation you belong to as well, but you're there to be in solidarity with them. And you are representatives of the Interfaith Council, and please share that love and grace and warmth that we've experienced here this morning, and all of that care and compassion that we continue to try to develop in our own hearts with the rest of the world. We don't have any other future meetings. If I'm going to be on vacation starting tomorrow until the 20th or 21st, but if there's a congregation that's willing to host a Thanksgiving celebration, please do text me even or let me know, and we'd love to put together an interfaith Thanksgiving service. And maybe that could be a healing service for all of us as well.
Thank you, Will. Thank you. Well, before we take leave, let's pause for a moment. First of all, let's spend a few moments in silence. Let's call to mind anything we might have heard today that touches our hearts, challenges us, lifts us up, and expands our heart. O Divine One of 1,000 names and 1,000 concepts, yet no one concept, no one name can grasp you. Sometimes we think of you as aloof in the heavens and far away. But as one brilliant person put it, you are closer to us than we are to ourselves. Thank you for our time together today. When we journeyed to the depth of our hearts, for the brokenness of our hearts invited us to see the light that manifests from within. May there be peace in Jerusalem. May there be peace in Kyiv. May there be peace in our hearts. And may we take all the peace and all the love that's within our hearts and release it to the world. My dear friends, what a blessing to be with you. Please be people of deep love and never be afraid to be yourself. Thank you for today. Be at peace.